There were a couple questions last week that were kind of like more intermediate to advanced questions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to remove this crush can. This is actually from a student that was in class. They were making this little logo thing inside of Illustrator, and then the next thing, we needed to get rid of the crush label here. So I'm going to turn this off just so that I can see what I'm doing a bit better. I'm going to make a copy as a backup. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this, what they call content aware fill, right? There's a clone, you'll hear a lot of things. There's clone stamp, there's all these things out there. This is what I do. You can go on YouTube and you can look at like the way people remove things. There'll be other ways of doing this. There's no right or wrong way. It's the way that works best for you. So I'm going to go to a selection tool. I don't like using the lasso tool. It doesn't give me enough control. So because like you kind of like just drag it around the lasso tool, and then it's kind of your best guess, right? I like a little more control in my selections. I'm going to hit Control or Command D to deselect that. The lasso tool I prefer is the polygonal lasso tool because it works with clicks. So if I go here and I click, I drag, click, drag, click, drag, and then it gives me a lot more control than just dragging my thumb around or mouse around and guessing. So I'm going to click this, clickety click, right? Join that together. Now I have my selection. It's a super powerful tool. You go up to Edit, you go Content Aware Fill. So the program has an AI in it that kind of guesses and looks at the image and says, what does Waldeck or this person want this filled with? So Content Aware Fill. Actually, in the new version of Photoshop, the content aware fill's even more powerful. You can kind of see it over here. You can make changes by painting. Here and here, see what happens there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm just going to go OK, and that's content aware fill. Command D to deselect that. You will see the content aware fill kicks the selection into its own layer there, right? I'm going to want this layer now attached to this layer down here if I'm happy with that. So I'm going to go right click. I'm going to merge those down. That gives me what I call a base coat to get started. That's super quick. Like you don't know how long this technique would have taken 10 years ago. So that was done in like 30 seconds, right? Another handy area to go into if you're removing something. My Photoshop sometimes. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to go to this thing called the patch tool. I like the patch tool. And you can just go around and you select an area with your patch tool and you can click and drag and start filling other areas. So areas that are a bit harsh like this, you could just go and select and then patch that. So start with the big area, the content aware like I just showed you, and then create a patch thing here. You can go around, you could even go and select this area, go grab that texture over here, and it fills that in. Another handy tool, the patch tool, is a spot healing brush. I rarely use the healing brush. I use this spot healing brush, and you basically grab a spot, then you drag that spot around, and you drag it through, and it erases it. So if you've got lines like this you don't want, you want this orange across, you grab it right there, you drag it up and across, and it gets rid of this stuff. So between the content aware fill, the patch, and the spot healing, you can do a nice base coat, kind of fill things in and fill things around. If you need something more tweaked to get rid of it, then I would go into the clone stamp tool. I'm going to have to edit this down a bit. Oh, there it is. It's right up here. Okay, so the clone stamp, you pick this. The way the clone stamp is, I just made my brush tip bigger. The way it works, you hold the Alt key down. It looks like a little bullseye thing. You select an area. So I'm going to click. Now I've clicked on that area, and then I move that area over, and you can just keep going, Alt, click, and then make those adjustments. You don't want to go Alt and you don't want to keep clicking because eventually it clones everything, right? So the trick is just to go Alt click and then a few clicks, and then go back and select another area, Alt, and then click that area. And that's how you remove a label. My other tip is don't spend too much time removing absolutely everything because you have another label to move in place. So I'm going to go and move this label over here into place. And then I know what I kind of need to get rid of, what I'm going to, so anything behind there, I would just be wasting my time, right? So now I know I could go and refine everywhere around here if I needed to. And that's how you remove something. I'm just going to also go over a couple other cool things that will help the cans stand out a little bit. So I'm just going to make a copy of that. I always like making a levels or a brightness and contrast adjustment because I think it makes things pop. So I'm going to go levels adjust this can a little bit. Pop that up. You know, right away. So now it's just taking your photo that you may have taken off your phone and just brightening it a little bit. What I also like to do is a saturation adjustment. So you can go to hue saturation here and just crank up the saturation, and it makes it a little bit more look like an ad. So right away, just between some brightness and contrast and saturation, you pop the can up a little bit. Now, if I want this area here kind of like tweaked a little more with some brights, I'm just going to go down into here. Look for the dodge tool in your tools. Pixlr will also have the dodge tool. So you can go dodge, stick with midtones, keep the exposure between 20 and 30, and then you can go and you can start dodging areas. And dodging lightens. You kind of like lighten something. And then it brings your can and pops the can up. And then the final tip I'm going to give you, this is more of an intermediate tip. It's kind of like being picky, but you can make a blank layer. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click on my foreground. I'm going to select a yellow or an orange color. And I'm going to go to my paintbrush and I'm going to paint that orange in. Then I'm going to change my blending mode from normal to overlay or soft light. So overlay, it looks more electric, but you see how it pops your can even more? Or soft light, it'll brighten things up a little more. So I could just come in and I could go in and I can brighten areas of the can up, and then it's looking a little bit more pop arty, popping that forward. If I've done something I don't want, or if an area that I don't want, or if I want to darken the edges, my recommendation at this stage of the graphics is just go into the erase. I'll show you more complicated ways to do this, but you can basically erase the unwanted areas of the painted layer. So just go in and erase that. You can feather that in a little bit. And so there's your soft light or your overlay layer, and that pops the can. You've dodged it. You use some brightness and contrast or levels, and you up the saturation. So you basically take the can, looks a little bit dull and dark. In a few steps, you've popped it up, and it looks more like a product shot you would see in an advertisement. And just a quick review from Friday's class. You may want to skew this or warp this into place. So where all that is located, you go to Edit. It's all that stuff's under the transform. I'm just going to go warp. And then I can just kind of like warp this so it looks like it's going along the lines of the can. If you just give it a little bit of a warp, it'll look like it's sitting on the can a little more. And there you go. So there's my product removal. So I've removed the crush in all those steps I just showed you. I brightened it with some levels or brightness and contrast to saturation. I dodged it. I threw a painted layer on soft light or overlay on there, and then the label, and then you're done.